Picture this. You're sitting across from a woman who's supposed to be out of your league. She's checking her phone less, leaning in more, and there's something in her eyes you've never seen before. Genuine fascination. But here's what's driving her crazy. She can't figure out why she's so drawn to you. She won't admit it, she might not even be conscious of it, but something inside her primitive brain is screaming that you're different from every other guy who's tried to win her over. What I'm about to reveal isn't some pickup artist nonsense or manipulative tactic. This is about understanding the fundamental psychology that governs human attraction, backed by evolutionary biology and decades of behavioral research. The men who understand this principle don't chase women. Women chase them. The uncomfortable truth that society doesn't want you to know is that attraction operates on a level far deeper than conscious choice. Robert Greene, in his masterwork, The Art of Seduction, reveals that the most powerful seducers throughout history understood one critical principle. People are addicted to what they cannot fully possess or predict. This isn't about playing games or being an asshole. This is about understanding that the human psyche is wired to pursue what feels scarce, valuable, and slightly beyond reach. When you master this dynamic, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. They become obsessed with discovering it themselves. Let me share something that happened to me years ago that completely changed how I understood attraction. I was talking to this incredibly intelligent, successful woman, the type who had guys falling over themselves to impress her. For months, I watched men shower her with compliments, expensive dinners, and constant attention. She was polite, but clearly bored. Then, I noticed something fascinating. The one guy who captured her complete attention was someone who treated her like an interesting human being, not a goddess to worship. He was present when he was with her, but he didn't orbit around her. He had his own mission, his own boundaries, his own sense of self-worth that didn't depend on her validation. She became absolutely fascinated by him. And here's the kicker. She couldn't explain why. This is what the Stoics understood about human nature thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of self-possession, of being so grounded in your own purpose that external validation becomes irrelevant. When you embody this principle, something remarkable happens. People become drawn to your energy because it's so rare in a world full of needy, approval-seeking behavior. But here's where most men get it wrong. They think being mysterious means being distant or cold. That's not mystery, that's just emotional unavailability, and it repels quality women faster than desperation does. True mystery comes from depth. It comes from being a man who has layers, who has passions and purposes that extend far beyond romantic conquest. Think about the most captivating people you've ever met. They weren't trying to be mysterious. They were genuinely focused on something bigger than themselves. They had stories to tell, perspectives to share, and a sense of mission that made them inherently interesting. This is what creates that magnetic quality that draws people in and keeps them wondering what makes you tick. Robert Cialdini's research on influence reveals that humans are hardwired to want what they perceive as scarce or exclusive. But scarcity isn't about being unavailable or playing hard to get in some juvenile way. Real scarcity comes from having standards, from being selective about who gets access to your time, energy, and emotional investment. When you're genuinely busy building something meaningful with your life, when you have clear boundaries about what you will and won't accept, when you're focused on your own growth and development, that's when you become genuinely scarce and therefore valuable. The ancient Stoics had a concept called preferred indifference, things that might be nice to have but don't determine your happiness or self-worth. This is exactly how you need to approach romantic relationships. Of course, you can enjoy female companionship, attraction, and connection, but the moment your happiness depends on any particular woman's approval, you've lost the very quality that made you attractive in the first place. This isn't about becoming cold or uncaring. It's about developing such a strong sense of self that you can be warm, generous, and emotionally available while still maintaining your center. Here's what most dating advice gets catastrophically wrong. It focuses on tactics instead of transformation. It teaches men to act confident instead of actually becoming confident. It promotes strategies for getting women instead of becoming the type of man that women naturally gravitate toward. The men who are truly successful with women aren't using techniques. They've developed themselves to the point where attraction happens naturally because of who they are, not what they do. The most powerful aphrodisiac isn't looks, money, or status, though these things don't hurt. The most powerful aphrodisiac is presence combined with purpose. When you're fully present with someone, when you're actually listening and engaging rather than thinking about your next move or waiting for your turn to talk, you create a rare experience in their life. Most people go through their days feeling unseen and unheard. When you give someone the gift of your complete attention, when you're curious about their thoughts and perspectives, when you engage with them as a complete human being rather than just a potential romantic conquest, you stand out in a way that no amount of clever lines or pickup techniques ever could. But presence alone isn't enough. Presence without purpose makes you forgettable. The most magnetic men are those who are clearly going somewhere in life, who have a vision that extends beyond their immediate comfort or pleasure. This doesn't mean you need to be the next Elon Musk or have some grandiose world-changing mission. It means you're actively working on becoming a better version of yourself. You have goals that challenge you. You're learning and growing and pushing yourself beyond your current limitations. When a woman senses that you're on a trajectory of growth and development, she naturally wants to be part of that journey. This is where the concept of emotional independence becomes crucial. Emotional independence doesn't mean you don't care about people, or that you're immune to hurt or disappointment. It means that your emotional state isn't dependent on other people's actions or approval. You can care deeply about someone while still maintaining your own emotional equilibrium. You can be disappointed by someone's behavior without it devastating you. You can enjoy someone's company without needing it for your own sense of worth or happiness. Women are incredibly intuitive about this distinction. They can sense when a man's interest in them comes from a place of abundance versus a place of neediness. When your attention comes from genuine appreciation and interest rather than a desperate need for validation or companionship, it feels completely different to receive. This is why the men who are most successful with women often seem to be the ones who care the least. It's not that they don't care, it's that they don't need the outcome to feel okay about themselves. The philosopher Epictetus taught that we can only control our own actions, thoughts, and responses. Everything else is outside our sphere of influence. This principle is revolutionary when applied to dating and relationships. When you truly internalize that you can only control your own behavior, you stop trying to manipulate outcomes and start focusing on being the best version of yourself in every interaction. You stop worrying about whether she's going to text back and start focusing on whether you're living up to your own standards. You stop analyzing her every word and gesture and start paying attention to whether this person adds value to your life. This shift in focus creates an incredibly attractive energy. Instead of the desperate, outcome-dependent vibe that most men radiate, you project confidence, self-assurance, and genuine interest without attachment. You become someone who enhances other people's lives rather than someone who needs them to enhance yours. This is the difference between being a source of positive energy and being an energy drain. And women can feel this difference instantly. One of the most misunderstood aspects of attraction is the role of challenge. Most men think that being challenging means being difficult, argumentative, or playing hard to get. But real challenge comes from having standards and boundaries, from being someone who can't be easily impressed or won over. It comes from having your own opinions and being willing to express them, even if they're not what someone wants to hear. It comes from being selective about who you invest your time and energy in, not because you're trying to create artificial scarcity, but because you genuinely value yourself enough to have standards. When you're truly challenging in this way, conversations become more interesting. Interactions become more dynamic and people have to step up their game to earn your respect and attention. This isn't about being arrogant or dismissive. It's about having enough self-respect to expect quality in your relationships and interactions. Women find this incredibly attractive because it signals that you see yourself as valuable. And if you see yourself as valuable, maybe there's something there worth discovering. The concept of frame control is essential here. Your frame is basically your version of reality, how you see yourself, how you see the world, how you interpret events and interactions. When you have a strong frame, you don't get pulled into other people's dramas or insecurities. You don't react to tests or provocations. You maintain your own perspective and sense of self, regardless of what's happening around you. This creates incredible stability and security in your presence, which is deeply attractive to women who are used to men who are reactive, emotional, and easily thrown off balance. Frame control isn't about being rigid or refusing to consider other perspectives. It's about being so grounded in your own identity and values that you can listen to others, consider their viewpoints, and even change your mind when presented with compelling evidence, all while maintaining your core sense of self. You can be flexible and adaptable without being weak or wishy-washy. You can be open to influence without being easily manipulated. The ancient Stoics understood that true strength comes from self-mastery. They knew that a man who could control his own reactions, emotions, and impulses was far more powerful than someone who was at the mercy of external circumstances. This self-mastery is incredibly attractive because it represents safety and stability. When a woman is with a man who has mastered himself, she knows that he won't become possessive, jealous, or controlling, because his sense of worth doesn't depend on her behavior. She knows that he won't become emotionally volatile or unpredictable because he's learned to manage his own emotional state. But self-mastery isn't about suppressing emotions or becoming some kind of emotionless robot. It's about developing emotional intelligence, the ability to feel your emotions fully without being controlled by them. It's about being able to experience disappointment without becoming bitter, to feel anger without becoming aggressive, to experience attraction without becoming desperate. This emotional maturity is rare and incredibly valuable in a world where most people are reactive and emotionally unpredictable. Here's something that will fundamentally change how you approach relationships. Stop trying to be chosen and start doing the choosing. Most men approach dating from a position of hoping to be selected, approved of, validated. They present themselves for evaluation and hope they pass the test. But the men who are truly successful with women flip this dynamic completely. They approach dating as an opportunity to evaluate whether this person is worthy of their time, energy, and emotional investment. This isn't about being arrogant or dismissive. It's about recognizing your own value and being selective about who you share it with. When you approach interactions from this mindset, everything changes. Instead of trying to impress, you're genuinely getting to know someone to see if they're impressive. Instead of wondering if you're good enough for them, you're evaluating whether they're good enough for you. This shift in perspective is immediately apparent to women and creates a completely different dynamic. The most successful seducers throughout history understood that attraction is about creating an experience, not delivering a presentation. They didn't try to convince anyone of their worth through words. They demonstrated it through their presence, their energy, their way of being in the world. They created moments of connection, intrigue, and emotional resonance. They made people feel something rather than think something. This is why authenticity is so crucial. You can't fake the energy of a man who truly values himself. You can't manufacture the presence of someone who is genuinely confident and self-assured. You can't create artificial chemistry or connection through techniques and tactics. The only way to become genuinely attractive is to do the work of becoming a man worth being attracted to. The path to becoming this kind of man requires a fundamental commitment to your own development and growth. It means developing interests and passions that have nothing to do with getting women. It means building skills, knowledge, and experiences that make you genuinely interesting and valuable. It means working on your physical fitness, not just to look good, but to feel strong and capable in your own body. It means developing your emotional intelligence, your communication skills, your ability to connect with people on a deep level. Most importantly, it means developing an unshakable sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on external validation. This is the hardest work you'll ever do, but it's also the most rewarding. When you truly know your own value, when you're genuinely confident in who you are and what you bring to the world, when you're focused on your own growth and development rather than on getting approval from others, you become magnetic in a way that no amount of technique or strategy can replicate. The woman sitting across from you may never be able to articulate exactly what makes you so compelling, but she'll feel it in every interaction. She'll find herself thinking about you when you're not around, wondering what you're doing, curious about your thoughts and perspectives. She'll be drawn to your energy because it's so different from the needy, approval-seeking behavior she's used to from men. She won't be able to put her finger on exactly what it is about you, but she'll know that whatever it is, she wants more of it. This is the real secret to attraction, becoming so focused on your own purpose and development that you naturally become the kind of man that women want to be around. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because you've become genuinely attractive through your own growth and self-development. This is what creates lasting attraction, deep connection, and relationships built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation, rather than neediness and desperation. The journey to becoming this kind of man isn't easy, and it's not quick. It requires consistent effort, honest self-reflection, and a willingness to face your own insecurities and limitations. But for the men who are willing to do this work, who are committed to becoming the best version of themselves rather than just learning new techniques to get women, the rewards extend far beyond romantic success. They become more confident, more fulfilled, more successful in all areas of their lives. They develop genuine self-respect and the respect of others. They create lives that they're genuinely excited to live, regardless of their relationship status. And here's the beautiful irony. When you become this kind of man, when you're truly focused on your own growth and development, when you have genuine self-worth and emotional independence, when you're selective about who you invest your time and energy in, that's when women naturally become drawn to you. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because you've become genuinely attractive. Not because you're using techniques or strategies, but because you've developed the qualities that create natural attraction. The science behind why this works is fascinating and rooted in evolutionary psychology. For thousands of years, women have been biologically programmed to seek out men who display what researchers call genetic fitness indicators, traits that suggest a man can not only survive, but thrive in challenging environments. Physical strength was important, but mental and emotional resilience were even more crucial for long-term survival and successful child-rearing. The modern equivalent of these ancient survival traits is emotional independence, self-mastery, and purposeful living. Dr. David Buss, one of the world's leading evolutionary psychologists, has conducted extensive research showing that women are instinctively attracted to men who demonstrate what he calls resource potential. Not just current resources, but the capacity to acquire and maintain resources over time. This isn't about money or material possessions, though these can be indicators. It's about the underlying qualities that enable a man to create value in the world: intelligence, ambition, persistence, creativity, leadership, and most importantly, the emotional stability to handle challenges without falling apart. When you embody these qualities naturally, through genuine self-development rather than pretense, you trigger deep-seated attraction mechanisms that operate below the level of conscious awareness. This is why women often can't explain why they're drawn to certain men. They're responding to evolutionary signals that have been refined over millennia to identify suitable long-term partners. But here's where modern society has created confusion. We've been taught that nice guys finish last, that you have to choose between being a good man and being an attractive man. This is a false dichotomy that has damaged countless relationships and left both men and women frustrated and unfulfilled. The truth is that the most attractive men are those who combine strength with kindness, confidence with humility, independence with the capacity for deep connection. The Stoic philosophers understood this balance perfectly. They weren't cold, unfeeling men. They were deeply principled individuals who had learned to master their emotions so they could respond to life's challenges with wisdom, rather than react with impulse. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote extensively about compassion, justice, and service to others. His strength came not from dominating others, but from mastering himself. This is the kind of strength that creates genuine attraction, not the brittle, aggressive masculinity that our culture often promotes, but the deep, quiet confidence that comes from knowing yourself completely and being comfortable with who you are. When you develop this kind of inner strength, you naturally become more attractive because you're no longer seeking validation or approval from others. You're complete within yourself, which creates space for genuine connection rather than needy attachment. One of the most crucial aspects of this transformation is learning to be comfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity. Most men try to control outcomes in relationships. They want to know exactly where they stand, what the other person is thinking, what's going to happen next. This need for certainty creates anxiety and neediness that repels attraction. The men who are most successful with women are those who can be comfortable not knowing, who can enjoy the process of getting to know someone without needing to control the outcome. This comfort with uncertainty extends to all areas of your life. When you're building a business, pursuing a creative project, or developing new skills, there's always uncertainty about how things will turn out. The men who can embrace this uncertainty, who can take action despite not knowing the outcome, who can persist through setbacks and failures, these are the men who create extraordinary lives for themselves, and women are naturally drawn to men who are creating extraordinary lives. The concept of outcome independence is revolutionary when you truly understand it. It's not about not caring. It's about caring deeply while not being attached to specific outcomes. You can be passionate about your goals while being flexible about how you achieve them. You can be interested in someone while not needing them to reciprocate. You can put effort into something while being okay if it doesn't work out as planned. This paradox, caring deeply while not being attached, is at the heart of both Stoic philosophy and natural attraction. When you can embody this paradox, you become incredibly powerful because you're willing to take risks, to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, all while maintaining your emotional equilibrium regardless of what happens. This combination of courage and stability is irresistible to high-quality women. Let me share a principle that changed everything for me. The most attractive thing you can do is live your life so fully and authentically that others want to be part of it, rather than trying to insert yourself into their lives. This means developing interests, passions, and goals that have nothing to do with getting female attention. It means building a life that's so engaging and fulfilling that people naturally want to join you on the journey. When you're genuinely excited about your own life, when you have projects and passions that light you up, when you're constantly learning and growing and pushing yourself to new levels, this energy is magnetic. People want to be around someone who's alive, who's growing, who's creating something meaningful. They want to experience that energy and be inspired by it. This is why the most attractive men often seem to be the busiest, not because they're playing hard to get, but because they're genuinely engaged in creating value in the world. They have limited time and energy, so they're naturally selective about how they spend both. This selectivity isn't a tactic. It's a natural consequence of having a life full of meaningful activities and relationships. The ancient Stoics had a practice called memento mori, remembering that death is inevitable and our time is limited. This wasn't meant to be morbid or depressing, but to inspire us to make the most of the time we have. When you truly internalize that your time is finite and precious, you naturally become more selective about how you spend it. You stop wasting energy on people who don't appreciate you, situations that don't serve you, and activities that don't align with your values and goals. This awareness of mortality creates a natural urgency and intensity that's incredibly attractive. You're not just going through the motions. You're actively creating a life worth living. You're not just trying to avoid pain or discomfort. You're pursuing growth, meaning, and authentic connection. This intensity and purposefulness stands out in a world where most people are sleepwalking through their lives. Another crucial element is developing what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify and articulate subtle differences in emotional states. Most people have a very limited emotional vocabulary and tend to experience emotions in broad, general categories. But the men who are most successful in relationships are those who can recognize and communicate nuanced emotional experiences, both in themselves and others. This emotional sophistication allows you to create deeper connections and more meaningful conversations. Instead of just asking someone how their day was, you might notice that they seem contemplative or energized or slightly melancholy, and engage with that specific emotional state. This level of emotional awareness and responsiveness is rare and incredibly valuable in relationships. The development of emotional granularity requires consistent self-reflection and mindfulness. You need to pay attention to your own emotional experiences throughout the day, noticing subtle shifts in mood, energy, and perspective. You need to become curious about what triggers different emotional states in yourself and others. This self-awareness naturally extends to social awareness, making you more attuned to the people around you. Physical presence is another often overlooked aspect of attraction that goes far beyond appearance. The way you carry yourself, the way you move through space, the way you use your voice, all of these communicate volumes about your inner state and level of self-confidence. Men who have done the work of developing genuine self-confidence naturally move differently. They're more relaxed, more grounded, more present in their bodies. This physical presence isn't about adopting artificial poses or practicing specific gestures. It's the natural result of feeling comfortable in your own skin. When you're not constantly worried about how others perceive you, when you're not carrying the tension of insecurity and self-doubt, your body naturally relaxes into a more confident posture. Your voice becomes deeper and more resonant because you're not constricting your throat with anxiety. Your movements become more fluid and purposeful because you're not second-guessing every action. The development of this natural physical confidence requires both inner work and practical attention to your body. Regular exercise, proper nutrition, adequate sleep. These aren't just about looking good, They're about feeling strong and capable in your physical form. When you feel good in your body, when you're taking care of your physical health and fitness, it shows in every aspect of your presence. Breathwork is particularly powerful for developing physical presence. Most people breathe shallowly from their chest, which creates and reinforces anxiety and nervousness. Learning to breathe deeply from your diaphragm not only reduces stress and increases confidence, but it also deepens your voice and creates a more grounded physical presence. This is a simple practice that can have profound effects on how you feel and how others perceive you. The concept of personal mythology is crucial for long-term attraction and relationship success. Every person has a story they tell themselves about who they are, what they're capable of, and what their life means. Most people's personal mythology is limiting and disempowering. They see themselves as victims of circumstances, as not good enough, as destined for mediocrity. But the most attractive and successful men have consciously crafted empowering personal mythologies that inspire them to grow and achieve. Your personal mythology isn't about delusion or fantasy. It's about choosing an identity and story that serves your highest potential. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who's unlucky in love, you can see yourself as someone who's selective and discerning. Instead of viewing past failures as evidence of your inadequacy, you can see them as valuable learning experiences that have prepared you for greater success. Instead of believing that good things happen to other people, you can cultivate the belief that you're capable of creating an extraordinary life. This shift in personal mythology has profound effects on your behavior, energy, and the opportunities that come into your life. When you truly believe that you're worthy of love, success, and happiness, you naturally act in ways that create these experiences. When you see yourself as someone who's constantly growing and improving, you naturally seek out challenges and opportunities for development. When you view yourself as valuable and worthy of respect, you naturally set boundaries and standards that reflect this belief. Remember, the most powerful aphrodisiac isn't what you say or do. It's who you are. And who you are is entirely within your control. The question isn't whether you can become this kind of man. The question is whether you're willing to do the work required to become him. This work is ongoing, lifelong, and incredibly rewarding. It's not just about becoming more attractive to women. It's about becoming the kind of man you can respect, the kind of life you can be proud of, the kind of person who makes a positive impact on everyone around him. The choice is yours, and the time to start is now.